Today, you might have noticed, a little bit of family is in town. And so I thought it'd be interesting to hear your perspective of the top 10 family bonding activities to do. Because it'd be good to do some family bonding. So what sorts of things are good family bonding activities around here? Birthday celebrations. Picnics. You guys are thinking food. You're kind of strong on the food theme. Food, ice cream. Game nights. Camping. Yeah. You can go camping. I spent one night in a tent. Stood up for the next 5 years. So, I looked this up, and interesting things. I've lost control. Now I'm going to go without any notes. So, watch out. Is the next slide really what I wrote, or is this what you wrote? Okay, so camping is on here. Breaking a sweat. We could run. Or not. Game night is on there. You know, this is a little light on food. So, a little light on that. But planting and tending a garden, wouldn't that be fun? Now, number 1, science experiments. Is that like doing science experiments on each other? How's that work? So I've been thinking about this. You know, I have one that's not on here. Preaching about family. We're on commandment number 5 this week. Honor your father and mother. Awkward. That's what I've got to say. Awkward. But that's where we're at. So we're gonna think about the 5th commandment. Probably kind of familiar. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. A couple of questions. First question, what is the command in this? Honor. All right. You're still with it. Good. What is the promise? That your days may be long. Let's think about this a little bit. Hypothetical story. Purely hypothetical. Say my family and I went to New Hampshire and met my brother's family there, and the boys went biking, mountain biking. And we like mountain biking. It's kind of a fun thing. And so I told my boys, be careful. Bike within your limits. We're going on moderate trails, which means we can go faster than our abilities should allow us. But they still had these visions of what mountain biking should look like. So we got on the ski lift because I'm a lazy mountain biker. You go up the ski lift to the top and then you bike down. And so before we went down the first time, I gave another little pep talk. In about 90 seconds, maybe, after that pep talk, I found Seth, sprawled out in the middle of the trail, in between some rocks, telling my brother, I think my helmet saved my life. So we had to flag down some hikers and use their first aid kit to bandage him up so he didn't bleed over everything. That was day 1. Let's not talk about honoring father and mother at this point. We'll get there. Let's say on the 3rd day, hypothetically, we went biking the last time, and Seth and I did a little more biking. A little more pep talk about biking within our abilities. And Seth was filming his biking adventure, and so let's watch Seth's biking adventure. This is the third day. hypothetically then. This is very difficult to do with a green screen. Seth didn't quite honor his father here. Went a little too far with the Viking. But the promise that you will always live long. Seth didn't honor me, but he still lived. So far. So this commandment isn't always a proverb. This isn't just a generalization. It's not just a proverb of, oh, well, if you obey your parents, you won't end up on the obituary page soon. There's something more to this. There's something much deeper about this. Let's take a closer look at what this might be getting at. We've been talking about the Ten Commandments, how there's like a vertical aspect and a horizontal aspect. And we've talked about how the first four are very much focused towards our relationship with God, very directly. So, no gods, no graven images, not taking God's name in vain, Sabbath, very vertically oriented. The next six are very horizontally oriented. Don't kill other people, don't do bad things to other people. It's kind of how that's working. But we know this is all within a covenant that people are making with God at the base of Mount Sinai, realizing that only if we're in good relationship with God and holding the first four, do the next six really flow. So there's this intersection of vertical and horizontal commandments. Commandment number 5, honoring your father and mother, I think is at the heart of this intersection. Let's think about this a little bit. So usually we think horizontally to honor your father and mother. Does anybody else think this way? Am I the only one who thought this was funny? I feel all alone. Thank you. It's the way Mr. King.
I missed the cue, I'm sorry.
Somebody got a word in here. Where's the fan? There's a horizontal aspect in which we expect kids to honor their parents, even if it comes to mowing the lawn. There's very much a vertical aspect that's going on here. God quite often refers to Israel as his firstborn son. When God first called the people out of Egypt, and he's talking to Moses about this, the Lord said to Moses, when you go back to Egypt, see that you do before Pharaoh all the miracles that I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. And I say to you, let my son go that he may serve me. I think when the Israelites heard this commandment, they're obviously thinking horizontal. They're obviously thinking about children and parents. But they've also got to be thinking about who is ultimately our Father. There's a vertical aspect that's going on here in which God clearly lays out a blessing and a responsibility. Let my son go. God is bringing salvation. God is bringing deliverance to his people. And also an expectation, a responsibility of serving him. In order to think about this vertical and horizontal some more, I want to think about what the word honor means. When you hear the word honor, what comes to mind? Respect. Obey. Look up to. Yeah, these things should be coming to mind. And actually, it's captured in. Anybody recognize this? This is Noah Webster. All right. Instead of citing people, why not put up pictures of them? It's much more interesting. So Webster's dictionary: respect that is given to someone who is admired. The Hobers did pretty good on the definition for honor. Let's step back to think about the Hebrew behind this. The Hebrew word that's translated honor is kabed. Cool churches say these words. We're cool. So let's say it together. Kabed. All right. Some of you are cool, some of you aren't. Okay, so kabed, we talked about this in youth group. So youth group can't put their 2 cents in on this. We talked about this, and youth group came to the discerning landing point that this word means ice cream. I did not know that Hebrews know a lot about ice cream. There's more to it though. Kabed literally means to be heavy or give weight to. They're an insightful group there.
Say it now, it doesn't mean.
Wise man. KB, this idea of honor is to give weight to. It's not simply obedience. It's not simply subordination. It's a seriousness or a respect. Think about this a little bit more. Let's run at this with a New Testament passage, which Paul is quoting this commandment. And running up to that, it says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land." Ephesians chapter 6. So we have the commandment clearly here. And we also have children obey. So there's a link between obeying and honoring. But there's a key phrase here. And it's a preposition. I love prepositions. Am I alone? They're easy to find. Next. So prepositions are important, and here's our preposition, in the Lord. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. That might be an important qualifier here. I'm going to quote another guy. I chose this guy because he looks like Josiah. Doesn't he? Cute. Josiah Kenyon, John Calvin, Josiah Kenyon, John Calvin. Pretty similar. Here's what Calvin said about this passage in one of his commentaries. "The power of a father is so limited as that God, on whom all relationships depend, shall have the rule over fathers as well as children. Paul indicates that if a father enjoins anything unrighteous, obedience is freely to be denied him." The intersection of obedience and honor. Think about it as an intersection. We are commanded to honor our parents or people in authority. There's this horizontal commandment that clearly you need to honor, give respect. The obedience aspect is within the vertical. Is when the person in authority is in line with God, there should be obedience. That obedience is within the line of God's authority. So the horizontal, honor all the time. Obedience within God's authority. Think about this a little bit more. Think of the word honor. And if we go with giving weight to someone, maybe it's important for us to take a breath twice. When we're speaking with someone, whether it's a parent, someone in authority, and maybe we want to tell them what we think of what they're thinking, saying, take a breath twice. And not just a breath before we physically speak, but how often is it that when we're listening to someone, we're already forming what we're going to say to zing back at them, to let them know who's right? Maybe taking a breath means listening to what they're truly saying before we even start forming our rebuttal in our minds. Honor requires giving weight, taking a breath, and not just with our words, but with our actions. and making sure our actions reflect honoring the authority. Next piece, with obedience, a Venn diagram. Who doesn't love a Venn diagram? In which, you like that? When things overlap. So, now obviously, if one of these is God's huge, but it wouldn't fit on a slide. So say God is A, and I am B. Where we overlap, that's where obedience happens. That's where obedience, where I have my authority, where people would obey. When there's overlap between God and I. Not when I'm doing my own thing separate from God's commands. But there's a key about the prepositional phrase that's disturbing to me. The prepositional phrase is not focused on my preference, it's focused on in the Lord. So I can't defy authority because it's not my preferred method. If authority is in line with God's commands, I follow it. My preference doesn't drive it. Keep thinking about this Venn diagram. You'll enjoy it. You like this, David. You'll have dreams about it. Okay. Now, I mentioned authority. Especially in the Old Testament, mother and father is used for more than just a biological father and mother. In Judges, one of the prophetesses is described, or one of the judges is described as the mother of Israel. In 1 Samuel, David refers to Saul as father when Saul was hunting him down to kill him. There is the term father and mother used for people in authority. So we get this idea that honor your father and mother might be broadening to the biblical theme of respecting authority. Now let's think about this for all of us. We can defy authority, but we know that's not right. But how about purposeful ignorance, in which I defy authority because I don't find out what the authority really wants? An example. Again, this involves Seth. Hypothetically. So last week, Seth and I went down to near Lock Haven to go to a camp. And Seth found a shortcut. He said, we can take time off our trip because the GPS showed a road. Our first clue should have been the road is called Robin's Trail. Okay, so this was the wide part of the road. And so the Elantra fit well on the road. The clearance was another issue. So after driving 2 miles, it felt like 20. All right, not many miles, apparently. We got to a gate, and it just ended. Fortunately, we didn't have to back up the whole way, but it just stopped and ended. And so I grumbled, and well, why didn't they let us know? Oh, GPS. And then we got out, and there was a sign at the entrance to the road that we didn't bother reading, because who reads these signs? This is something about a state forest road, and having rules and regulations about using the road, and maybe we could have avoided this if we read the sign. How often do we use purposeful ignorance as a way around authority? I didn't really know what I was supposed to do because I never looked into it. Oh, I didn't know that was against the law or against this or that because I never bothered to look into it. We defy authority through purposeful ignorance. I think this commandment clearly calls us out on that. Question. Who is in authority over you? If you say no one, you've got an issue. But that's something different. Who is in authority over you? Do you and I honor that authority? Do we give respect to those in authority over us? It might be at work, it might be at home, it might be our elected officials. It doesn't mean we have to agree with them. It means we need to honor the authority that's over us. Taking a breath before we speak or act. Now, there is the promise part of this. We've talked about the command part. We need to talk about the promise, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God has given you. And I come back again and I think, boy wonder was biking, and the promise didn't go the way it was supposed to. Right? Thank you. Does anybody have an explanation for this?
He is the Lord.
No benefit of the doubt for him. It was purposeful ignorance, Jameson. What if this promise is not to an individual? What if this promise in the commandment isn't to, hey, Joe the Israelite, if you obey your parents, you're going to live a long time? What if this command is to all the Israelites who are making covenant with God? Remember, they're entering the promised land. And God is saying, if you obey your parents, if you soak in all the lessons and come to know me, you will continue to be able to live in the land for generations to come because you will be faithfully covenant keepers. It's not just a command and promise to one guy, it's to the people. Now that's kind of interesting. Now think about this for us. We have a responsibility, not simply to be obeying and teaching for the sake of keeping a commandment. It's for the sake of the future. It's for the sake of generations to come. Faithful living isn't just about me. It's about our families. It's about generations to come. Theme of intersections this week. We talked about Commandment 5, in which children are supposed to honor their parents. We're supposed to honor people in authority over us. Commandment 2 talked a lot about the responsibility of people in authority, where there's no carved image and that stuff. By the time you get down to verse 5, I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. There's not just a responsibility for kids and people under authority. There's a responsibility for parents and people of authority to truly live out our lives in a way that is winsome. Let's apply this. If you haven't been able to tell, this sermon is like a forced way to get you to look at slides of our vacation. Did you catch that? You know? I'm so sweaty, I keep running out of this thing. When we went on vacation, we went ice skating multiple times. And at the ice skating rink, they had these kind of walker things. So you could learn or relearn skating. You could get your confidence up, and then you could skate. Because no matter how much you tell somebody, this is how you skate, you still need to practice it to get it figured out. This commandment is very similar to that. And I want us to think about how we're practicing honoring. First question for you. If you struggle in a horizontal relationship, do not simply blame the other person. Remember, it might be rooted in your own vertical relationship issue. If we're struggling in a relationship with someone, something's really irritating us or bothering us, it could be the sin of the other person. It could be my own sin. And it could all be rooted in the fact that something's not right between God and I. If those 6 commandments about how to interact with other people kind of flows from our vertical relationship with God, maybe instead of just writing off bad relationships or sour relationships on circumstances, maybe we should look at our own hearts. Where am I in my walk with God? Second thing to think about is the reciprocity of relationships. We all know there's some give and take in relationships. There's a back and forth. What about that with authority and honoring? All of us, to some degree, have places of authority in our lives. It might be authority in our home, it might be authority at work, it might be authority to decide when I'm going to do something. We all have authority. Do we take those opportunities to purposefully teach? In the second commandment, it was very clear about the importance of teaching generations to come. In the places that we have, where we have any element of authority, do we purposefully take that and use that as an opportunity to lead others to know God? On the flip side, all of us are under authority. Do we really honor other people? Do we honor our parents, whether they're living or not? Do we honor them? People in authority, do we honor them? I hope we think about this because we sing a lot about honoring God. First hymn today, we sang Holy, Holy, Holy. Very focused on honoring and praising God. Do we live that out in the way we honor and respect the people created in God's image?